Well, when we think about the losses, so the potential losses of N. So summarize, we put urea on the surface and it's going to convert to ammonium and could then convert to ammonia and gas off. That is volatility, volatilization. That's different than if we put ammonia on and it converts to nitrate and we get heavy rains. Nitrates go where water goes. So if we get heavy rains, we're going to flush it out, and that's leaching, flushing it out through the tile. Only happens to nitrate. Doesn't happen to anhydrous, doesn't happen to ammonium. It keeps raining. We saturate the soil. We push out all the oxygen. The aerobic microbes, the aerobic heterotrophs that break down and get ammonium released, the aerobic autotrophs that convert ammonium to nitrate, they can't survive when we're flooded. And other microbes come in, anaerobic microbes. And these microbes can't survive where there's free oxygen. They still need oxygen, but they can't handle free oxygen. It'd be kind of like we have a pond here at work with a lot of fish in it. If I was sitting there fishing, wasn't catching anything, I decided I'm gonna dive in there and see where those fish are at. And I dive in the pond and I decided they're breathing oxygen. Why don't I give it a try? I'm gonna be in trouble. I can't get my oxygen out of the water. Same token, if I catch that fish and I throw him up on the bank, plenty of oxygen, but he can't handle free oxygen. I don't know what fish and nitrogen have in common, but we're kind of making this comparison. So a situation where these microbes need oxygen, but they can't handle free oxygen. They need to strip their oxygen from sulfur and nitrogen. And when they do strip the oxygen away, the nitrogen will convert back into an N2 gas and get away on us. That's denitrification. So volatility is ammonia leaving. Denitrification is nitrogen gas leaving. Leaching is nitrate leaving. Okay? The thing to keep in mind is none of that happens to the ammonium form. It only happens to the urea form or the nitrate form. Now, denitrification is driven by microbes, so it's also driven by temperature. So if the soil is saturated, but the soil is almost frozen, not a big loss, okay? Not a big loss in March when we get a heavy rain and the soils are cold. But if water stands out there in 70 degree soils for very long, then nitrification process is going to start taking place. And it's going to burn it off. So a scenario where we have to think about where our nitrogen is, what the soil conditions are like, what stage our nitrogen is in, and then how do we protect it? What's the best ways of protecting it? A lot of inhibitors on the market. This isn't a full list of them by no means. Main thing out of here is saying some protect against volatility. That's off the surface. So mixing something in your nitrogen that protects you against volatility at the same time you're incorporating the nitrogen with your soil finisher is a waste of money to some extent, meaning that you didn't have to worry about volatility, you were incorporating it. If you're knifing it in with a coulter or you're putting it in the soil, we don't worry about volatility. If we're applying to the surface, we do if it's urea. We don't worry about volatility with ammonium sulfate, diammonium phosphate, monoammonium phosphate in the ammonium form. Denitrification and leaching. Denitrification, again, is going to be saturated soils, especially at warm temperatures. If your soils never get saturated due to drainage, slope, infiltration, denitrification is not a big issue. But if you have a lot of ponding, it can be. Leaching is flushing nitrate through the soil. So a situation where we're talking about running it out through the tile for the most part here in the I states, as far as leaching it down through as a negative. It doesn't have any place to hang on to the cupcake tin because it's a negative charged particle moving through that soil profile. So these are all ways to lose it off of your property so you can't use it. And then you have to find some type of protection. In some case, in a no-till case, for instance, you may want protection against volatility because you're going to leave it on the surface. But it also may be a soil that has a lot of leaching issues, so you may want denitrification. So you may start to look at things that do both out there. But remember, the more your inhibitor does, the more it costs. And a situation where we have to think about the cost side of that equation as well. And there's all different types of inhibitors on the market today, from controlled release, which are bigger time inhibitors, to just managing the pin in that grenade or keeping it in there, depending on the process that you're working with. Boy, a lot of times though, what happens is a grower gets things confused. He says, well, I don't understand. I went out here and I put my urea inhibitor with my nitrogen and I incorporated it in. Right away when he tells you that, he's what? He's wasted his urea inhibitor. But he can't understand why the pond is yellow. The pond is yellow due to denitrification. And that happened on a nitrate. The inhibitor he put with it was just for urea. It wasn't for the nitrate. Or somebody said, well, I put a nitrification inhibitor. I put a nitrification inhibitor with my 28% to keep it from converting from ammonium to nitrate. Sprayed it on the surface, but I think I lost a lot of N when it didn't rain. And probably a nitrification inhibitor doesn't stop the urease loss that could take place. A nitrification inhibitor doesn't protect the nitrate. What's already nitrate can't be protected. So what's nitrate in your N source, if you had a rain the following week, that nitrate's moving. Okay? So know your inhibitors, know the product you're applying, and make sure you're picking the right inhibitor for the process. And today, there's a zillion inhibitors out there on the market. You need to study that label and see, is it a urease inhibitor? Are we stopping denitrification? Or is it a leaching process? Or is it a controlled release or time frame?